Okay, when you think of dinosaurs, I bet a few key players immediately pop into your head. You've got your T-Rex, your Triceratops, and then, of course, you've got the Stegosaurus. It's one of the most famous animals from the Jurassic period, a real pop culture icon.
I mean, everyone knows this shape, right? That arched back with that unmistakable row of plates, the head held low, and that dangerously looking spiked tail. You see that silhouette, you know exactly what you're looking at.
But here's the thing. What if I told you that the popular image we all have in our heads is filled with myths, scientific debates, and some really cool mysteries that paleontologists are still trying to figure out? So today, we're going to unravel the real story of this incredible creature.
Seriously, our understanding of Stegosaurus has changed so much since it was first dug up. The very first guess was, well, it wasn't even close to what we know today.
So, let's rewind the clock to 1877. The paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh, who first described the fossils, thought the plates lay flat on the animal's back, kind of like shingles, forming a shell. So he pictured this giant, aquatic, turtle-like animal. And that's actually how it got its name. Stegosaurus means roof lizard, a far cry from the land-based plant eater we picture now, right?
Now here's a fact you've probably heard a million times. For an animal that could weigh over 3.5 metric tons, that's bigger than some elephants, its brain was unbelievably tiny. We're talking no more than 80 grams. Proportionally, that is one of the smallest brains of any dinosaur we know of.
And that, of course, led to the popular idea that the Stegosaurus was just hopelessly stupid. But not so fast. The thing is, brain size alone isn't really a great way to measure intelligence. We don't know anything about how its brain was structured, and without that, we just can't say how smart or, not so smart it actually was.
All right, let's get to the main event, those incredible plates. For more than 100 years, scientists have been arguing about what they were for, and honestly, it's still one of the biggest puzzles in all of paleontology.
First, it's really important to know what these plates actually were. They weren't attached to the skeleton, like, say, our ribs are. Nope, they were something called osteoderms, basically bony plates that grew out of the skin itself, kind of like the scales you'd see on a crocodile's back.
So what was the point of them? Well, there are three big ideas. The first theory was defense, but the plates seem way too flimsy, and they're not really in the best spots to be great armor. The second idea is thermoregulation, controlling body heat. The plates had lots of blood vessels, so maybe they worked like giant radiators. But the theory that's really the frontrunner today is display. They were basically giant billboards for attracting a mate or for telling other dinosaurs, hey, I'm a Stegosaurus, which means they could have been covered in all sorts of bright colors and patterns.
Now let's move to the business end of the Stegosaurus. Those 4 gigantic spikes on its tail. Were they just for show, or were they a truly deadly weapon?
Well, the answer comes from a true smoking gun piece of evidence. Paleontologists actually found an Allosaurus vertebra, a bone from the spine of one of the top predators of the time, and it had a puncture hole in it that perfectly matched a Stegosaurus tail spike. The bone even shows signs of healing and infection, which means the Allosaurus survived the hit. But man, what a devastating wound that must have been.
And it wasn't just a one-off thing either. When you look at all the Stegosaurus tail spikes we've found, nearly 10% of them show signs of damage and trauma right at the tips. That's pretty strong proof that these things were being used, and probably used pretty often, in combat.
So to really understand this animal, you have to picture the world it was living in. And let me tell you, it was a seriously dangerous neighborhood.
Most Stegosaurus fossils come from a place in North America called the Morrison Formation. About 150 million years ago, this area was a huge, semi-dry landscape. Think big, open forests of conifers and sprawling prairies of ferns with real distinct wet and dry seasons. And the other dinosaurs living there? It was an all-star cast. Stegosaurus shared its world with absolutely massive plant eaters like Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus. But it also had to be on the lookout for some terrifying predators, guys like Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus. So yeah, having a weaponized tail was probably not just a good idea, it was a necessity.
What this all boils down to is that the story of Stegosaurus is also the story of science itself. It's this continuous process of discovery, of revising what we thought we knew.
Just look at how our view has changed. We went from that weird roof lizard turtle back in 1877 to the classic tail-dragging movie monster of the early 1900s, all the way to the much more agile and dynamic animal we picture today, with its tail held high off the ground ready to swing.
And that is the absolute key takeaway. Our picture of the past isn't some static thing that's set in stone. It's always being updated, always being refined as we dig up new fossils and come up with new ways to study them. Stegosaurus is the perfect example of that whole process in action.
Which of course leaves us with one last, really fascinating question. If our image of an icon like Stegosaurus can change this much, what other secrets are still hiding in the bones of fossils we think we've already got all figured out? I mean, who knows? Maybe one day we'll even figure out what color those incredible plates really were.